drawbacks of object-oriented programming. One of the main drawback of object-oriented programming is, so one important drawback about object-oriented programming is, so it uses a legacy library. It uses a legacy library. So it is tedious. It is more complex in configurations. So it uses more memory. And it is slow. It cannot directly interact with hardware services. These are all problems with OOP. Don't think that object-oriented programming is great. So object-oriented programming has its own problems. That is the reason you can see refrigerator, washing machine, microwave oven, air condition. You will not have a Java program in it, but it is an electronic device with some sort of programming. You will not have a .NET program, Java program running in them because they are too heavy for them. Because a microwave oven works with a small chip inside it, with very less memory inside it. AC works with a small chip inside it, with very less memory. It will have remote access in microwave ovens. All these needs a program which can directly interact with their hardware. That means you push a button, it should control the speed of fan. This OOP languages cannot do directly. That is the problem. So that means you cannot say that everywhere it is object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming has a lot of drawbacks. If you want to compromise with the speed, if you want to compromise with the memory, and you want highly interactive, effective application, then you can build by using OOP. Otherwise, we go with POPS only, process-oriented programming system. So that means there are certain drawbacks of object-oriented programming. What do you mean by legacy library? Legacy library means even for a small functionality, it loads the complete library available for the language. And this is what is not good for computer programming. That means you want only one function and it is loading entire library, so which is not required. That is what legacy library. Due to that, application becomes slow. So memory, it uses more memory. It needs more memory. It cannot directly interact with hardware services. These are all the drawbacks of OOPs. So OOP is not completely great for every situation. So it depends on our requirements. So the three major programming systems adopted and implemented in computer programming for real world development process are these three: process-oriented programming system, object-based programming system, and object-oriented programming system. These are the three important programming systems. And important, we should know that TypeScript is completely object-oriented programming. Completely object-oriented programming. So is completely object-oriented programming language. That means it supports all the features of OOPs. JavaScript is not completely object-oriented programming. JavaScript supports certain features of OOPs, but not an object-oriented program. And TypeScript was developed as an object-oriented programming. In the introduction, I told you, right? It was developed by Microsoft. Now, These are the features and drawbacks of OOPS. Now the point is, these are the features and drawbacks of OOPS. So what are the characteristics of OOPS? What are the characteristics? Characteristics, right? Characteristics of OOPS. OOPS. Characteristics of OOP. That means the point is how OOP languages are capable of code reusability, code separation, code extensibility. That means how these features are available. So how it supports these features. So because of its characteristics. And what are the characteristics of OOPs? In the OOP characteristics, you have to know about a class. You have to know about an object. You have to know about inheritance, and it have polymorphism, and it have abstraction, and it have encapsulation. These are all the characteristics of OOPS, object-oriented programming. Many people, so they misuse this term. When we ask what are the features of OOPS, many people tell about these points. They will say inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation. As a technical developer, you should know that they are not features of OOPS, they are the characteristics of OOPS. Inheritance is a characteristic of OOP. Polymorphism is a characteristic of OOPS. And due to inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. So it have all these features. Understood? So these features are because of these characteristics. The features are because of those characteristics. That is what actually the features and characteristics. Lot of variation is there. Learning object-oriented programming is all about learning the characteristics of OOPS. Once you know how to implement these characteristics into OOPS, then obviously you are going to achieve these features: code reusability, separation, extensibility. These you must call as features, and these you must call as characteristics. So TypeScript is a complete object-oriented programming language that supports all these characteristics. JavaScript have issues in that. For example, suppose I am writing JavaScript. Some JavaScript we are writing. JavaScript also supports class. What is class and all I will tell you later, right? Suppose JavaScript is supporting a class A and it is supporting a class B. And the JavaScript has to implement class A. That means we have to implements class A so that it can extend that class A and implement class A. That means you can see that implement clauses can only be used in TypeScript. So JavaScript doesn't support implements. JavaScript have a class. It supports class, but JavaScript doesn't support implements. That means an object-oriented programming should support implement in order to handle extensibility, in order to handle implementations. What are implementing, extending, I will tell you. In TypeScript, we will discuss about that. It is not supported. Another important point is, suppose in JavaScript, we declared